Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a battle that was so huge, so absolutely devastating, that it literally became the bloody foundation for an entire empire. This is the story of Changping, the place where the fate of China was sealed in one single catastrophic conflict. Just try to get your head around this number for a second. We're talking about over 1 million soldiers mobilized for one single campaign way back in the 3rd century BCE. I mean, that's a scale of warfare that is just staggering, even by today's standards. So how does that even happen? How does one battle become the turning point for an entire nation? Well, it's a story of incredible strategy, but also fatal arrogance, and the loss of life so immense it permanently changed the course of history. Okay, let's get into it. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the two superpowers locked in a stalemate. Then we'll look at the War of Whispers, the psychological games that changed everything. After that, the perfect trap that was sprung, the absolutely horrific aftermath, and finally, how all this bloodshed laid the foundation for an empire. All right, let's set the stage. Our story begins in one of the most chaotic times in Chinese history, known as the Warring States period. For more than 200 years, the land was torn apart by constant war, with 7 major states all fighting for total control. By the time we get to the 260s BCE, it's really come down to two titans. In one corner, you've got the state of Qin, this ruthless, highly organized war machine. And in the other, the state of Zhao, a powerful kingdom that was pretty much the last real obstacle to Qin's ambitions. And they were on a collision course over this one little piece of strategic land, the Shangdang Commandery. So here's how it all kicks off. The Qin attack a smaller state called Han, and they end up surrounding Shangdang. Now the local commander there, instead of just surrendering to Qin, makes this huge gamble. He offers the whole territory to Zhao. The king of Zhao figures, hey, free buffer zone? I'll take it. Well, Qin was not happy. They felt cheated out of their prize, so they invaded. And just like that, the war was. To deal with this invasion, Zhao calls in their top guy, a seasoned veteran general named Lian Po. He gets to the front, takes a few early hits, and then he sizes up the Qin army and comes up with this brilliant, though maybe not very exciting, defensive plan. See, Lian Po was smart. He knew the Qin army was deadly in a head-to-head fight, but he also knew their biggest weakness was their supply line. It was long and vulnerable. So he just refused to fight. He built massive fortifications, dug in his troops, and just waited. The plan was to let the Qin army basically starve itself out. And you know what? It worked. For more than 2 years, these two gigantic armies were stuck in this brutal, grinding stalemate. But a 2-year stalemate is expensive, and it was wearing everyone down. The Qin, totally frustrated that they couldn't break through Lian Po's defenses, decided to change tactics. If they couldn't win on the battlefield, maybe they could win inside the king's mind. And this is where things get really clever. They launch what has to be one of the earliest examples of a massive psyops campaign. They sent spies into the Zhao capital with tons of money to bribe officials and start spreading rumors, basically what we'd call fake news today. The message they spread was simple, but absolutely lethal. They started saying things like, Lian Po, oh, he's too old, too scared to fight. His caution isn't strategy, it's cowardice. And these whispers found a very receptive audience. The king of Zhao was getting really tired of this long, expensive war, and he started to think, maybe Lian Po is the problem. And the king fell for it completely. Hook, line, and sinker. He fired the experienced Lian Po and replaced him with this young, arrogant guy named Zhao Kuo. Now, Zhao Kuo knew all the military textbooks by heart, but he'd never actually commanded a single soldier in a real battle. In fact, in what has to be a massive red flag, his own mother went to the king and begged him not to give her son the job, saying he treated war like it was just a game. The second the Qin heard about this change in command, they made a secret move of their own. They swapped out their general for their most brilliant and most ruthless commander, Bai Qi. This guy was known as the human butcher for his brutal efficiency, and his appointment was kept an absolute secret. The order was, anyone who leaks this news gets executed. The trap was officially being set. So what does our new, book-smart General Zhao Kuo do? Exactly what the Qin were hoping for. He's eager to make a name for himself, so he immediately throws out Lian Po's entire defensive strategy and orders an all-out attack. He basically took the bait. And this is where Bai Qi shows he's a true master. He pulls off a perfect encirclement, the kind of textbook move Hannibal would make famous at Cannae decades later. He has his main force pretend to retreat, luring the overconfident Zhao Kuo forward. As the Zhao army rushes after them, Bai Qi sends 2 hidden forces to swing around behind them, cutting off their supplies and their only way out. Then the main Qin army turns around and slams the door shut. The entire Zhao army was caught. So now the trap is sprung. The massive Zhao army is stuck in a valley, totally cut off from food, from water, from any hope of reinforcement. They were facing a brutal, hopeless siege. For 46 days. Think about that. For 46 agonizing days, the starving, surrounded Zhao army held on, just hoping for a rescue that was never going to come. As you can imagine, with no supplies, the situation turned absolutely horrific. The soldiers ate their own horses, and according to the ancient historians, when the horses were gone, they turned to cannibalism. In one last, desperate breakout attempt, Zhao Kuo led the charge himself and was promptly killed by a shower of Qin arrows. With their commander dead and all hope completely gone, what was left of the Zhao army finally surrendered. And we're talking about a staggering number of men, something like 450,000 soldiers, just laid down their weapons. So now Bai Qi, the Qin general, has a huge problem. What do you do with almost 500,000 prisoners of war? You can't feed them, and you can't just let them go, because they'll just fight you again later. Fearing a massive revolt from all these desperate men, he made a decision that was as chilling as it was infamous. He ordered them all executed. The historian Sima Qian says the prisoners were led into a gorge and buried alive, all of them. The only ones spared were 240 of the very youngest soldiers. And that was an act of mercy. They were sent home to Zhao to spread the terrifying news of what had happened. And just like that, the Battle of Changping was over. But its consequences, well, they would completely reshape the future of China and echo for thousands of years. For the state of Zhao, this was the end. They lost an entire generation of their men. Their military was shattered and would never recover. And for Qin, this was total victory. Their last real rival was off the board, clearing the way for them to conquer everyone else. You can draw a straight line from this one horrific battle to the creation of Imperial China, which happened just 4 decades later under the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. You know, the failure of Zhao Ku was so complete, so spectacular, that it actually created a Chinese idiom that people still use today, 纸上谈兵. It literally means to talk about war on paper. It's what you'd call an armchair general, somebody who knows all the theory but has zero practical experience. And that really leaves us with the big question that historians still argue about. Was this whole disaster the fault of one arrogant general and one foolish king? Or was it just inevitable? Was the state of Zhao doomed from the start against the disciplined, organized, and utterly ruthless war machine that was the state of Qin? It's a powerful lesson, for sure, on war and leadership, written in the blood of nearly 500,000 men.